I'll never forget the sound of the auctioneer's voice echoing through that cold, gray parking lot. 15,000 going once, 15,000 going twice. That was my house they were bidding on. Mine. I just stood there, hands shaking, feeling the concrete under my boots, and asking myself, how did it come to this? It's funny, you spend your whole life thinking you know something about power, especially if you've worked as a union electrician for 30 years. But there's a special kind of power that comes with a clipboard, a rule book, and the determination to make your life hell over something as simple as windows. See, this all started with my HOA president, Karen Whitmore, and believe me, her name fits. She used to run Willowbrook Estates like her own personal fiefdom. And if you crossed her, you found out just how fast community guidelines could become a weapon. I learned that the hard way. But here's the part she never expected. I document everything. Every letter, every threat, every so-called violation from those miserable community meetings, I kept it all. 5 years later, I was the one holding a $75,000 check. And guess whose signature was on it? That's right, hers. So what would you do if your HOA tried to steal your house over renovations they'd already approved? Ever seen a neighbor get destroyed by someone with too much authority and not enough sense? Because let me tell you, it can happen to anyone. I'm telling you my story because I know I'm not the only one. After my divorce, I just wanted a little peace, a place where my daughter Emma could visit on weekends and not have to worry about her world falling apart. Willowbrook looked perfect. Quiet streets, kids playing, the whole Norman Rockwell vibe. Sure, the house was a fixer-upper, but that's what I do. Those original 1973 windows were leaking heat like a sieve. So I did my research, found energy-efficient replacements that looked just like the originals, and filed every bit of paperwork the HOA required. Photos, specs, permits, you name it. And you know what? They approved it. Official letter, signed and sealed. I felt like I'd finally gotten one over on the universe for a change. 14 days later, I was sitting on my porch, watching the sun bounce off those new windows, thinking I'd won. That's when the first violation notice showed up. Karen herself, in her perfect bob and tailored suit, standing at my door like she was serving a warrant. Mr. Hendricks, your modifications are unacceptable. She said it like she was reading my sentence in court. I held up my letter. You approve these, I said. That approval was conditional, she snapped. Conditional. Except there was no mention of conditions anywhere in my paperwork. That was the first lesson. Never assume you're playing the same game as someone who writes the rules. I walked into the next HOA meeting ready to stand my ground. The place reeked of burnt coffee and tension. Karen handed me a violation notice, then another, and another, each one stacking up like bricks in a wall. $500 fine. Double it next month. Triple it if I kept pushing back. I looked around the room for support. Neighbors I'd waved to 100 times, but not a single person would meet my eyes. That silence hit harder than any fine. I went home that night and started digging. If Karen wanted to play legal games, so could I. I dug through HOA documents until my eyes hurt, and what I found made me sick. Dozens of houses in Willowbrook with the same windows as mine. No violations. No fines. Just me. That was the second lesson. Power doesn't just enforce the rules, it picks the targets. I started to wonder why I'd been singled out. Turns out, every person Karen went after was a renter, a minority, or someone who didn't fit her idea of the right kind of neighbor. The rest got warnings or nothing at all. It wasn't about the windows, it was about control. Things escalated fast. She put a lien on my house for unpaid fines, $2,000 overnight. Threats of foreclosure. I called my neighbor Janet, a 73-year-old widow who grew prize-winning roses and never bothered anyone. Her voice shook when she answered. Karen did the same thing to me, she said. Said my garden gnomes broke the rules. I moved them instead of fighting. That night, I stayed up reading Ohio property law, eyes burning from the glow of my laptop. Karen had filed the lien without the required notice or cure period. She'd broken the law, betting I'd be too scared or too broke to fight back. That's when things shifted. I became obsessed with documenting everything: letters, photos, board meeting minutes, even emails I managed to get through public records requests. My spare bedroom turned into an evidence room. I tracked the pattern of violations across the neighborhood and saw it clear as day. She wasn't enforcing the rules. She was running a protection racket. The retaliation got uglier. Anonymous complaints, collections calls, threats to garnish my wages. When my daughter noticed how tired I looked, I told her it was just adult stuff, but that was a lie. I was scared. But then Janet handed me a folder, emails, violation notices, all the proof I'd need. One email from Karen to the board made my blood run cold. Target renters and blue-collar types first. They can't fight back. That was the third lesson. Bullies only win when nobody stands up. I called legal aid. Their attorney, Sarah Martinez, nearly laughed when she saw my evidence. "This isn't just an HOA dispute," she said. "This is federal housing discrimination." The day of the hearing, I walked into that courthouse with boxes of proof. Karen showed up in her best suit, smug as ever. She thought she'd already won. When Sarah dropped the discrimination bombshell, the judge's eyebrows went up so fast, I thought they'd fly off her face. Court recessed for half an hour while Karen's attorney panicked on a cell phone. When we reconvened, the judge dismissed their case and referred the matter to the feds. Karen went pale. The rest of the room erupted in whispers. But Karen wasn't done. She escalated to harassment. Anonymous complaints to the city, fake code violations, even a PI snooping around, taking pictures of Emma on her way to school. Child Protective Services showed up at my door on a bogus neglect complaint. I invited the social worker inside, offered her coffee, showed her the evidence room, and said, "If you see any sign my daughter's neglected, you tell me right now." She closed her notepad and said, "Keep fighting the good fight." But Karen's fatal mistake wasn't the harassment. It was greed. She owned 3 rentals in Willowbrook, property she'd bought for pennies after driving out their previous owners with the same dirty tricks she used on me. The kicker? They had the same illegal windows I did. She'd even collected insurance money on repairs for violations she claimed were so bad she'd try to take my house. I brought all this to Sarah, and together with a forensic accountant and a federal housing expert, we mapped out 5 years of racketeering. Mail fraud, wire fraud, housing discrimination, RICO charges. We found former neighbors who'd been driven out. Some cried on the phone when they realized it hadn't been their fault. It had been a pattern. The case took on a life of its own. Federal agents got involved. Karen's world started to crumble. She tried suing me for defamation and business interference. That only proved her connection to the LLC buying up the distressed properties. Then someone broke into my house and trashed my evidence room, but missed the backup files. The FBI loved that. Obstruction of justice, witness intimidation. They stacked up the charges like bricks in the wall she'd built around herself. Then came the day I never thought I'd see. Federal agents arrested Karen at 6 a.m., right there in Willowbrook. Word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. At the next HOA meeting, the place was packed. Reporters, neighbors, even people from 3 towns overshowed up to watch the board announce Karen's resignation, the dissolution of her company, and a settlement. $75,000 to me, plus restitution to every family she'd targeted. Sarah stood up and told everyone, "This case sets a precedent. No more using HOA power for personal gain." I took the microphone and looked around the room. Faces I'd known for years, most of them afraid to speak up before. "This wasn't just about windows," I said. "It was about proving that regular people can stand up to bullies. When we stand together, we win." The community changed after that. Emma started a college fund with part of the settlement. We set up a scholarship for kids in the neighborhood. Carlos Martinez, who'd gotten hit with fines for his windows, ran for HOA president and won by a landslide. The first thing he did? Require transparency, financial reporting, and ban conflicts of interest. Janet started giving garden tours, gnomes and all. We set up a legal defense fund for anyone else who got targeted. The old Karen rules were gone for good. Looking back, it wasn't just about getting my house back or winning a check. It was about showing Emma and anyone else watching that justice isn't just for people who can afford fancy lawyers. Sometimes it's for stubborn electricians with a stack of receipts, retired neighbors with manila folders, and teenagers who refuse to let bullies win. Karen Whitmore spent years teaching people to be afraid. But in the end, she learned that fear works both ways. So let me ask you, what would you do if someone tried to take your home over a rule they made up? Have you ever seen power abused in your own community? Drop your story below. Let's make sure these fights aren't silent anymore. Because when we stand together, even the biggest bully in the room can't win forever.